Let's count them in. Are you ready? Wind your timers. Pros in 3, 2, 1. Let's go!
Hi, this is Bill for Sparky Channel, and I would like to welcome you to the Ideal National Championship Professional Finals Competition. There are 5 professional competitors left to compete for $60,000 for first place, $25,000 for second place, or $10 grand for third place. Here are the 5 contestants who will be competing in this final round.
Center stage, Josh Tower. Come on, Anthony, come on, Jim. Tom Kennedy. Let's bring it back again, Greg Anlicker. But the last man joining us for the finals is Albert Nadeau.
For this challenge, the contestants will be installing a photovoltaic panel on the rooftop of a garage. They will also be installing an AC branch circuit junction box on the rooftop and also an N-phase IQ8 Plus microinverter, which I will describe in more detail later. They will also be installing EMT conduit from a solar-ready meter to the rooftop junction box. Here, Greg Anlicker is preparing his microinverter and his rooftop junction box. It is an excellent idea when you're going to be working up on a roof to get very organized and make sure you have everything you need before you go up on that roof. This is an N-phase IQ 8 Plus microinverter. A microinverter is a device used with solar arrays to convert the energy that's generated, now that's direct current, to usable electricity for a house, which is alternating current. Each microinverter is connected to a single solar panel, and that's done for maximum control and reliability. Greg is now going to drill holes in his junction box to accommodate a 3/4 liquid tight fitting and a 1/2-inch compression connector. That's a step bit that Greg is using. And the beauty of a step bit is that he's going to be able to drill the hole for his 3/4 inch fitting and the other hole for his 1/2-inch fitting with the same bit. Also, if you need a hole a little bit bigger, just drill a little more. His left hand is holding a lock nut, so he's screwing that fitting into a lock nut, which is on the inside of the junction box. He is installing a liquid tight cord grip connector. This connector will be a 1/2-inch exterior connector for EMT. Now Greg will run an EGC wire through his liquid tight connector. The purpose is to bond the solar mount rails. EGC stands for Equipment Grounding Conductor, and the rails up on the roof are considered to be metal equipment, so they will need to be bonded. Now he'll attach his screw gun with his tether. This is to help avoid injury in case he was to drop his screw gun while he was up on the roof. While Greg is getting his tools together and tethering his tools, let me mention that these connectors right here bring the DC current into the microinverter, and then that current is inverted into AC current, and that AC current comes out these wires right here. This DC connector assembly attaches to the wires that are on the solar panel. Here Greg is making sure he has enough items in his ideal tool bag. And by the way, I have a link in my video description for that tool bag. It's been a very popular item for Ideal. Now Greg is unwrapping the wires that are on the back of the solar panel. Now Greg will organize the wires from the panel. Greg is now getting together his end clamp T-bolts, and here are the directions that he's working on. It says install PV module, so that's the solar panel, and connect the DC leads of the PV module to the DC input connectors on the microinverter. B, mount PV module using 4 dedicated clamps, and these are the clamps right here. This is important. Distance between end rails and clamps, cantilevers, should be equal at both ends. PV module overhang should be the same at top and bottom. This is a 7/16" nut right here. You put them in, you tighten it down, and this turns into the rail, and so that tightens on to your PV module. And there's 4 of these. They have to be equally distanced top and bottom, and that tightens down and holds your PV module.
Going up.
These are the rails that are pre-installed for the contestants. This is what they're going to be putting the solar panel on. This is a 2x4 that's been nailed in place here for the contestant safety. That looks like a good idea, really. And you see Greg has a harness here, and one of the rules is someone has to always hold this ladder while he's coming up and down it. So here's the rules. Install the AC branch circuit junction box on rooftop. Mount J-box at 9 inches from left edge of roof to edge of box, and ensure bottom of box is level with bottom rail. All right, so here's the bottom rail, and the bottom of the box has to be level with this rail, and it's going to be 9 inches from the edge of the roof. And then mount N phase, this is a brand name by the way, mount N phase inverter 19 inches from left edge of top rail to connection point. All right, so here's the left edge right here. You go over 19 inches, and that's where you put it. Okay, and here's the inverter right here. Kind of a crazy place for it, but he'll grab it in just a second. A, use provided hardware to secure the inverter bracket to the solar rail. 3, install solar system equipment ground conductor, EGC. A, install ground lugs 8 inches from left edge of both rails. B, bond both rails to EGC via ground lugs. And this one is already done. Connect EGC into ACJ box through liquid tight cord grip. 4, attach DC connector assembly and Q cable, DG type cable containing 2 number 12 AWG conductors to the inverter. Type DG cable is distributed generation cable, and basically it's the kind of cable that is used with the inverter. Here Greg is installing the junction box. He has measured up to make sure that it's 9 inches from the edge of the roof, and the bottom of the junction box is level with the lower rail. Now let's switch over and check in on Anthony Kowalczyk, who was last year's professional champion. He is getting ready to install the microinverter. It looks like he has elected to install the microinverter prior to installing the junction box. Remember, the microinverter must be installed 19 inches from the top left edge of the top rail. And Anthony just looked over the scopes that I just read you a minute ago, and he's going to measure out his 19 inches now and put it where it goes. The metal on the microinverter goes up, so that is correct. Now Anthony is going to install his junction box, but I don't see any holes drilled in the junction box yet. When you're installing solar, you should do everything you can on the ground before you come up onto the roof. Now let's check in on Tom Kennedy and see how he's doing. It looks like he has his microinverter in the right place, but what is his junction box doing so that it would be underneath the solar panel? That's not in the right spot. I think what happened is instead of measuring in 9 inches from the edge of the roof, he measured in 9 inches from the edge of the lower rail. Now let's check back in on Anthony. He has come down the ladder, drilled his holes, put his fittings on the junction box, and now he's ready to install it. Looks like he's got it in the correct spot, 9 inches from the edge of the roof, the bottom level with the bottom rail. Excellent. Here is Albert Nadeau from New Hampshire. Right now he's drilling a hole in his junction box. Looks like he has the junction box in the right place. And it's interesting that he has drilled a hole in the bottom of the junction box rather than in the side of the junction box. Either way is all right, as long as you got a plan. And now he's going to drill another hole in the side of the box. This one is for the wires that come from the PV module. The one in the bottom of the box will go to his EMT. Now let's check in on Greg again. Notice that he has his bare copper EGC wire connected to both of his rails, and then it comes back into his junction box. And here comes the PV module for Greg, or as you might call it, a solar panel. And it's a two-man operation. Part of the rules is each contestant needs to have a helper to help bring the PV module up onto the roof. Now Greg will insert the end clamp T-bolts. Microinverters are installed underneath the PV modules. Also, this brand is installed with the metal plate up. Meanwhile, Tom Kennedy has gotten his PV module up on the roof. When you install PV modules, you can install them in either a portrait manner like this, or you can use a landscape type installation where your PV modules are going in this direction. However, when you install in portrait, you need to have your rails going this way, horizontally on the roof. When you install in a landscape manner, your rails need to go this way, vertically up the roof. And now back to Greg. He's going to measure up and make sure the PV module extends beyond the top rail the same distance as the PV module extends beyond the bottom rail. And now back on the ground with Anthony. He is bending a back-to-back 90 bend. He will need that for his EMT run. Notice that he has elected to do this work prior to putting the PV module on the roof. Now Greg has come down from the roof. He's happy with his installation of the PV module, and he's going to work on the solar ready meter enclosure with disconnect. This enclosure has a 200 amp disconnect in it. Now Greg has grabbed his solar safety single throw disconnect switch, which is made by Siemens. There are a large selection of these kinds of switches for different kinds of solar systems. He has drilled a hole for his 1/2-inch EMT fitting. That's an exterior fitting, and he's going to tighten that down, and once it's on the wall, he'll be able to measure up for his EMT runs. Now with Christy, the judge, checking out his work, Greg will measure up as to where he's going to put the safety switch. Now he'll measure up for his EMT run to go from his solar safety switch over to his solar ready meter enclosure. Now for the EMT bend that will go from the safety switch to the meter, and he's going to take his EMT bender and put it on his EMT. And first of all, just give it a 90, and then he's going to scoot it down, scoot it down, scoot it down, and he's keep making repeated bends until he's got what he wants. And let's see if he likes it. Yeah, there's a little nod. I think he likes that. That is a back-to-back 90 EMT bend, but it's about the smallest one you could possibly make with half-inch EMT. He'll ream it out. Give it a test to see if he likes it. And now he's going to put a box offset on it. There's the first part of it. And it's the second half of the box offset. There you go. Now Greg will put a strap on the wall for his EMT. Meanwhile, Tom Kennedy has his landscape installation of the PV module well secured, and his junction box is partially underneath the PV module. Meanwhile, Greg will measure up for an EMT run from the junction box on the roof to the safety switch. Now Greg will put a bend on this piece of EMT, and now he's going to put it down on the ground, and he's going to do a box offset. There's half your box offset right there. Flip it over, and here's the other half of the box offset. Now he'll cut it to length with a bandsaw, and he'll ream the end that he cut. Now he'll put one end of the EMT in the fitting that he installed into the safety switch. Meanwhile, Anthony is working in a different order in that he has already done his hookups and EMT bending, and now he's working up on the roof. Greg is installing a strap for his EMT run, and he has chosen to follow the pitch of the roof with his EMT. Yeah. Now he has his measurements for his final run of EMT, and he'll come down the ladder. And there's a 90-degree stub. And now a kick. That's a kick bend.
Do I got to split my winnings with you or no? If I win? Thank you.
He has an exterior coupling on one end of this piece of EMT. Now he'll couple together this smaller piece of EMT with his longer run with the exterior coupling. And now he's running it over to his junction box, and that is a beautiful job of running EMT. The IQ8 Plus micro inverter that we're using in this system operates at 240 volts line to line. So Greg is going to grab a red wire, a black wire, and a green wire and run it from his safety switch to the junction box. The green EGC wire will go to his ground bar.
10 minutes. We're getting a home stretch. 10 minutes left.
I'd like to pause here and mention that this is the incorrect disconnect. Ideal couldn't get the proper disconnect due to supply chain issues. Proper disconnect would break this leg and this leg here. In this case, this particular disconnect can only break one leg here. So what the contestants had to do is they had to take one leg and run it non-disconnected over to the meter panel. But you can see here he's got a black wire, a green wire, and a red wire exiting the safety switch. Now Greg is putting a breaker in the solar ready meter enclosure. When we zoom in, we can see that it is a 20 amp 2-pole circuit breaker. And then when he adds the 12 gauge THHN wiring for the PV system circuit, it enables the solar supplied current. The red and black hot wires will go to the 2-pole 20 amp breaker, and the green EGC will go to the ground bar. Tom is working very hard on getting his EMT run and wires from his safety switch to his solar ready meter enclosure. He is installing an exterior fitting for his 1/2 inch EMT conduit. Tom is going to go with a 90-degree stub for this run. He's putting his EMT into the weather-tight fittings. At about the same time, Greg is finishing up his meter enclosure wiring. Safety stickers were not provided, so Greg is writing on the panels various safety messages. Now, with time running short, Greg will go up onto the roof for some finishing touches. It looks like he hasn't made the final connections in his junction box. See how quick he can do it. He doesn't have much time left. Oh, he's quick. And now we're down to the final 60 seconds. $60,000 on the line. Tom on the left, Greg on the right. Greg is up on the roof. He's doing his final wiring in his junction box. He's got it. He's closed it. He's going to screw down the final screw. Here is Tom on the left.
40 seconds.
40 seconds left. Just 40 seconds. Greg has his junction box just about tightened down. And Tom's going to tighten down his lugs. Okay, here comes Greg. Down the ladder. He's done. Greg's getting a big cheer from the crowd. Tom's tightening down his lugs, making sure everything's just right for when the judges come around. So he's tightening them down real well, and okay, he's got it covered. He's already knocked out the knockouts for the breakers. And now he's going to tighten down the inside cover and close it. That's it.
Everything about that panel is heavy and all this. There you go. That's the definition, right? Of hard work, too. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, hey, you know what? You know how to hook it up, so we'll just see what happens. Conduit looks great. Thank you. Thank you for keeping with the rake of the roof. You know, the little things. The little things. That's right. All right, man. Good luck. Thanks.
And here we are at the finals award ceremony for the pros. It's going to be $60,000 for first place, $25,000 for second place, and $10,000 for third place. So, without further ado, here we go.
We're going to start with third place for our pro competition, taking home $10,000. Get up here, Josh Tower. Second place. This one's a nail biter right here, I gotta tell you. Taking home $25,000. Second place, 25, not too bad. Our friend and familiar face, Greg Anlicker. All right, we're skipping to the good part. First place, the 2022 Ideal Electricians National Championship. The trophy and a $60,000 check is going in the hands of Tom Kennedy.